Hello, everyone. Welcome to Atmosphere Media Network. Today, we have our special guest. He is known by VOR, the Voice of Reason. He is the host on the platform Media, Military, and Foreign Affairs Network. He's been updating this Ethiopia Tigray-Eritrean conflict. VOR, welcome to Atmosphere Media Network.
Thank you, Wale. Pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So at this moment, seems like the DSA front is becoming very serious battlefield. There is like new information coming out as well. If you get a chance, uh, what do you think? What is your assessment on this front? Is it been very serious and takes a lot of time for the TDF to crack down there. So, what is your assessment on this front?
Well, from what's going on the ground right now, in terms of the federal forces, the Abit loyalist forces located within Dese, they really appear to be falling apart at this time. It sounds like the Tigrayan Defense Forces have taken control of Dese, or are in the process of moving into areas of Dese as we speak. And the really big issue right now for those federal forces is the rate of surrender when they're coming into contact with the TDF, and at the same time the withdrawal from Dese itself. So things don't bode well. The chatter out of the region would indicate that there's a general collapse within the force structure that's located near Dese, and again the TDF continued to advance.
Yeah, it was kind of by the ENDF, the Ethiopian National Defense Force, and Amhara forces. They were like, seems like it was like do and die on the Desa front. Do you think like collapsing this front could be leading like or make the conflict shorter?
Yeah, I believe that now there's multiple issues at hand. I believe there's internal fighting going on within that force structure itself, between obviously the Amhara regional forces and the ENDF, as you said. But yes, there's something is tremendously wrong right now to lose Dese that quickly, considering they were looking at a major offensive that they were going to launch from the environments of Dese just 10 days ago.
Yeah, and the ENDF and Amhara militia forces using civilians as shell to protect from TDF attacking, especially on the Desi front. And for example, the Amhara and ENDF, the Amhara forces ENDF was firing like artillery from the city, and they don't want to go out of the city, and they're using like the basically the population of the city as a hostage and like firing like artillery fires from there. And what is the intention on that? What was their intention? Don't they be like protect for the people, or how do you see that? Did you see all this like time was like they just hiding on the city and they using like hostage to the population of Desi? What was your observation on this front?
Well, from a military standpoint, and again, this is a military view. This is not a humanitarian view. And first and foremost, I'm looking this from a military viewpoint.
Yeah.
And what the ENDF were doing, the Amhara militias, are in line with normal military strategy, especially given the political loss that would occur if Dese was taken. And if we look back in history, we look at the siege of Stalingrad and other wars throughout history. It's not uncommon for an opposing force or an army to use a city as a last standing ground, because obviously war is just an extension of politics by other means. And if Dese, if they lose Dese, they're a lot closer to losing this war. So I completely understand why they were putting artillery in Dese and doing what they were doing. They really don't have a choice at this point. And again, given the fact that they appear to be driven out of Dese, is really huge if you're watching this conflict.
Yes, and beside how ENDF and Amhara forces stay on the city and firing artillery from the city. And we don't see a counter back and shelling the city from TDF. And until now, we didn't see any reports like civilians are injured and or damaged, so killed because of this. And do you think like TDF did a good thing to avoid that on this?
Yeah, I think at some point they would probably have to look at
Mm-hmm.
engaging the city, but they've shown a tremendous amount of restraint in not doing that, and using other tactics and methods to envelop the city, especially from the west, taking those key terrain features that exist just to the west of the city. And really they've done a tremendous job in terms of demotivating the ENDF. It is it's in a dire situation right now for morale and motivation.
Gotcha. Awesome. And recently, Ethiopia seems deployed a new modern and powerful TOS-1A tank is made Russian, and that report was like coming yesterday, and on the DESE front. So, what impact can we expect on the ground and see this kind of tank? And what impact, what difference can make?
Yeah, so it was very interesting to see that that device being used in the conflict. In the military circles, no one was really aware that the TOS had been deployed to Ethiopia, or nor
Mhm.
that the Ethiopians had purchased the device. And again, the Russians identify these as flamethrowers. And the reason they call them flamethrowers is they launch thermal barrack munitions or fuel air explosives. And these are
Okay.
incredibly high explosive munitions that are used, and they can create tremendous damage to troops in the open, defensive structures, buildings, and deployed the way that the ENDF is using them in ones and twos. And again, we only saw one being utilized. Probably not that effective. Again, we even see the talk about the drone use. But again, you have to deploy these systems in sufficient numbers for them to be effective. So with the TOS, again, they have to be used in conjunction with other weapon systems.
Mhm.
Other organizational structures have to be used. And we're not seeing that. Again, using in ones and twos, and especially with the drone use, it's not going to make a big difference in the outcome of the actual battle. Obviously, it can cause damage. It can cause issues with some smaller units. But
Mhm.
in the grand scheme of things, on a grand scale, obviously they're not influencing the current course of the conflict.
Okay, so you mentioned like it has like explosive air explosion, and so do you think it can impact on the environment, the society as well if the war is like next to the city? It has
Oh
like
yeah, if those are used in a city environment, if for instance the TOS were to be used in a counterattack against TDF forces located inside of DESE,
Mhm.
the damage would be just unprecedented because of the nature of those thermal barrack munitions that they're using.
Gotcha. Okay. So the airstrike, I mean, on Thursday in Mekelle, this was like for the sixth time, like airstrike, and there are reports, I don't know, reports or rumors. Some shows Ethiopia using Chinese Wing Long One drone. Do you know any information about that and on the ground if that's true? If that is true, why the UN or other international community stay idle on this and using like drones on civilians? I think more than 10 people, children including, die. So if you can explain how the China wing long can be dangerous on populated cities like Meghalaya.
Yeah, so the Chinese drone, or even any other drone that's a relatively modern drone
Mhm.
that has a what you would call a thermal imaging device on it, a FLIR. and then also is carrying precision guided laser munitions. Obviously, is a threat. It's a threat to both the from a military aspect. Obviously, troops in column or in the open or really anywhere on the battlefield, and then obviously if the individual who is operating the drone is not very well trained, and if that military is in a desperate situation and they identify something they think it could be a military target and it's in fact not a military target, then obviously it can cause damage to the civilian population. But again, we're just not seeing those being deployed in the numbers needed to really change the outcome of the conflict. I know we've harkened back and we've looked at the success of drones in Syria, the success of drones in the Nagorno-Karabakh war in Armenia,
Mm-hmm.
and yes, those were able to really change the outcome of the conflict because they were deployed in such numbers. I think at one point there were as many as 30 to 50 drones being deployed over Nagorno-Karabakh. And again, that area is a much smaller area when you compare it to the combat zone inside of Ethiopia and Tigray. So again, you have a lot more drones operating in a very closed space versus a very few drones operating over a much larger space inside of Ethiopia. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah. And I'm just wondering, this is a lot of people wonder about that too. Like all this like airstrike and drone strikes going to the most populated city in Tigray, the capital city, Megala. We don't see a lot of other places. So is that really intention for the military, or what is the plan on the ENDF side? What do you think that will really impact on TDF by just like bombing the capital city? What is your observation on that?
So it would appear to be desperation. They're trying to manipulate public opinion, probably in Mekelle, trying to strike close to the leadership of the TDF located in Mekelle, and cause issue and obviously damage to infrastructure inside of Mekelle because they're in a desperate situation right now. They know, meaning the ENDF right now is losing this conflict. They are losing, make no mistake of it. They're not in a good position right now. They continue to lose land and they continue to see reverses. Now, with that comes desperation, and those attacks near Mekelle are simply lashing out and really kind of desperate last stand measures to try and reverse course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned like the desperation is like seems like even some of the Westerns kind of understand that, but at the same time, like the TDF, the Tigray government offers like even for inclusive dialogue, even though there's so many crimes, war crimes happen because to, but right now the fight is going on because there is no any other options like Tigray is and complete like siege. But some people they say why Ethiopian government don't want to take the negotiation is because of Isaias is leading him. Isaias you don't want the negotiation because he knows what he does. And do you think like the Isaias, the regime of Isaias, Eritrean president, is controlling the conflict not to stop it, come not to come to the dialogue negotiation with the Ethiopian entity?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So the Afwerki regime is very aware that if the TDF were to win this conflict, his regime is probably going to be next in terms of, and especially after what has happened during the course of the original occupation of the Tigray region. There's going to probably be accountability at some point, and I believe that he greatly miscalculated by allowing his forces to be utilized and entering the Tigray region. But at the same time, he does appear to be orchestrating a lot of what is occurring in terms of what just occurred back in late 2020. And again, it's miscalculation. You can see repeated miscalculation continues to occur with him.
Yeah. Okay. Um, let's say after this war is over, and it seems like it's obvious Ethiopia may like disintegrate and fall apart. So what would be the outcome inside the state of Ethiopia, and even on the not only just like inside Ethiopia but even neighbors like Djibouti, Eritrea, Sudan, Kenya. First, like, what do you see? Let's go first in the entity of Ethiopia, like inside. Do you see, like, for example, there's Oromo, there's like Amhara, and of course Tigray. And do you think, like, for example, Oromo could be one country or one state, or Tigray, or somewhere with Amhara or Afar, another state, and what could be what would we expecting what would we expect on this outcome, and again on the neighbor in the Horn of Africa as well?
Yeah, so ideally, I would envision some sort of loose confederation possibly occurring. It's really up right now. What's the next step in terms of the TDF? Is it going to advance towards Addis Ababa? Is it going to evict the Prosperity Party and Abiy Ahmed from power? And then, yeah, you do have to look at the Oromia region. Obviously, there is great disdain within certain parts of Oromia for the current regime that exists inside of Addis Ababa, aka Finfine.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is really, will there be some sort of unity within Oromia? Well, because there continues to be infighting between various factions within Oromia. Obviously, you have the right now the OLA, which is the main force against the Abiy regime that has more or less somewhat an alliance right now with the TDF. But it's very difficult to say what things look like at this moment. What happens with Eritrea? There's just a lot of moving pieces. I think ideally we look at some sort of loose confederation. Yeah, Oromia gains de facto independence, and you see a confederation of states as opposed to this strong centralized federal government that is dictating its wishes to everybody else. I think in all likelihood that's probably the best outcome. Will that actually happen? Very, very difficult to say at this point.
Gotcha. Okay. And beside like TDF right now is probably not a lot of people they know, but since you really updating like daily and the military analysis in the Ethiopian conflict, there's like Oromo and other like armed forces as well struggling for their right. So beside like TDF, what do you see? Do you see like the Oromo OLA, Oromo Liberation Arm, and other groups are gaining, growing, and fighting against the Ethiopian government, Ethiopian ANDF? What is your observation, especially on OLA?
Yeah, I think that's occurring as we speak right now. I think right now, in terms of the Abiy loyalists, the federal forces that are engaging the TDF, that's more of a conventional conflict now. And the OLA, the Oromo Liberation Army, has normally acted as more of an insurgency force against this better, much more well-equipped forces of the federal government. Now that's changing, and it's changing as we speak. And could we see the OLA start to take on more conventional operations? Is an attack, is a possible move against Addis Ababa possible? Yeah, it is possible now, especially as you see the force composition within the federal forces start to degrade and surrender en masse as they're doing now.
Yeah, interestingly, especially on the desert front, and it was reported we see a lot of like NDF like surrendering, and a lot of like unarmed, not like well-trained people came from the Fano militia and irregular forces as well. They kind of say they try to defend the city and on the city, not on the front, but there is like rumors like they don't want the ANDF. When the ANDF figure out and find out they cannot hold anymore, they have to withdraw and retreat, and they fighting with them. And there is like some conflict who's even in charge. There's some rumors. I'm not sure exactly, but like there's some ANDF members killed by the Amhara militia fanos. Who's on the role of command? Are they just doing whatever they want? And is ENDF on the command? Do you think like ENDF is in command on this war, or the Amhara militia forces?
No, well, we know for a fact there is not unity of command within inside of the ENDF and these Amhara regional forces. So, during World War II, we saw in terms of the Allies, we saw one cohesive force that was under the command of Eisenhower, and you had British, French, Free Polish, United States forces, all under one command. We don't see that within the context of this conflict. There's even talk that the ENDF doesn't have unity of command, and that's very dangerous, especially when you're trying to find a large-scale conflict like what's happening now.
Okay, yeah, and finally, this the world really understand why TDF is fighting all the way even like till like this front, and because if their people is under siege, completely 360 under siege, what option did they have really out of that? And I see some of the Western, especially when I see the word is like in the Western, and I'm not expecting anything from other part, but they still call like TPLF, TDF, or the people of Tigray is not only TPLF. There is in fact so many parties inside Tigray, and even if you see the United States, the House representative like resolution recently, they level everything, blame on, I mean, it's not blaming, but like somebody has to be accountable, the TPLF and Ethiopian troops and Eritrean troops. But right now is the fight is not between TPLF. TPLF is just one part. You don't call it like they are the government in Tigray. It's government Tigray. Even here in our country, in the United States, you don't call like Florida just like Republican. It's like Florida's government. In the United States, you call it like United States government, not like just Democratic or Republican. But they still using like this party's name. But Tigray is not only just like TPLF. TPLF is just one entity party. There's so many parties, political parties in Tigray. So do they really understand? Like even the UN, the international committees, the GDF has only one option just to fight, because the world gives like an ideal on this to respond, because people are they seeing like people are dying with no options, no medicine. And again, what is how that come? Like, is that like ignorance on the media, or what is that? Why they still call them like rebels or TPLF, since like Tigray has own government and has so many parts on that?
Well, there's just not a lot of knowledge within the mainstream media about the conflict that's occurring. I mean, even just from an anchor level, they have very little information, and all they're reporting is what some of the poll reporters are saying. So, for instance, you can see some recent reports coming out in terms of what has happened in Desse recently, and that's finally coming out. But there's a lot more going on to this conflict than just that, and it's just really a lack of knowledge. They're going back in time, and part of that is political spin from the Prosperity Party and the B side of things, trying to create a correlation or political spin with the old TPLF to what's occurring now. But that's one of their tactics that they're using, and it's effective to some extent. And at the same time, they're exerting this anaconda strategy in terms of trying to choke off the Tigray region to any form of aid or supplies or anything of the sort. And believe it or not, that's now hurting them, because it's forcing the TDF's hand to continue to move south. As long as they maintain that anaconda strategy around the Tigray region, it's forcing the Tigray region, the TDF, to basically cut off the head of the snake, and that's what they're trying to do now.
Yeah. I think it's a good answer. You say it's lack of knowledge because it seems like the Ethiopian government used like TPLF, but the issue is not like about TPLF. So TPLF is one part. In fact, there is so many parties inside, and Tigray is whole government, and TDF is like collection of all Tigrayan and the Western medias, and they just took and called the name from they borrow from the what government of Ethiopia borrow TPLF. So I just want to make sure, like, if they really, the international community really want to solve and save, like, minimize the issue of the people of Ethiopia and people of Tigray, they have to understand it deeply. It's not like just like highlights. So that's why I want to mention it. I think we came at the end of our program, and if you have anything to add, what I miss, and anything to your audience, especially on your platform, you're doing like really great job to inform the diasporas and some extent even to the Western too, really what's going on. And as you say, this is like probably one of the biggest war now on the planet, but like so far there is no coverage. And thankfully, like your platform is covering. So if you have anything you want to say, your audience on your military and foreign affair networks, and for other audience, or if anything I miss you want to say, I'll give you a couple of minutes.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, like as you said, it is the largest conflict on the planet right now in terms of a both conventional and high intensity insurgency as well. It is the largest conflict that's going on the planet right now, and woefully undercovered in terms of the what you would define as the mainstream media. But luckily, there are outlets like my channel and other channels as well that
Yeah.
are attempting to cover it. I think it will be interesting to see what happens in terms of Eritrea. I think at some point the forces that be within the TDF are going to have to ask the question, what happens to Isaias Afwerki, and is it the time to possibly remove him from power if and when the conflict inside of Ethiopia is resolved?
Awesome. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, our program ends here. Please share and subscribe Axmouth Media Network, and also please share and subscribe Military and Foreign Affairs Network. Thank you, VOR, for you sharing the instructive information as usual. Thank you.
Absolutely. Have a great day, everybody.
Have a good one.